they closed in on them too late. Belgian authorities making that admission as they uncovered more evidence in the wake of Tuesday's attacks that brought Europe's capital to a halt. The manhunt, though, continues for other key figures from the presumed cells responsible for last November's Paris attacks. How were they able to keep plotting in plain sight? Once again, it's happened in Brussels. We'll be asking that question. Brussels, where France's prime minister has again made the argument for stepped-up intelligence sharing. Can EU states agree on how much privacy their citizens are willing to give up in the name of security? It's part of a broader battle, you might say, over common values. The jihadists were the winners on Tuesday, inflicting maximum damage that could have a lasting impact, not only on Brussels, but on the whole world. How we get about in our daily lives. How much security? How much can a small minority alter our way of life? Today in the France 24 debate, we're looking at the consequences of the Brussels attacks. And with us from London, British Labour member of the European Parliament, Claude Moraes, who chairs its Civil Liberties, Justice and Home Affairs Committee. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening.
From the Belgian capital, Dutch Social Liberal MEP, Sophia in 't Veld. Thank you for joining us. And here in the studio, we're in the company of Guillaume Denoy de Saint-Marc of the French Association for the Victims of Terrorism, who has also worked on de-radicalization. Thank you for being with us. And attorney Etienne Drouard, who has focused squarely on these questions of security versus privacy. Thank you for being with us. The France 24 debate, where you can join the conversation on Facebook and Twitter, our hashtag F24debate. This time, it was Belgium's turn to grind to a halt. This Wednesday, the nation observing a minute of silence for the 31 killed at the airport and at a central metro station. Crowds once again flocking to Brussels' Place de la Bourse, where they'd spontaneously congregated again the night before. Earlier, our own Catherine Norris-Trent went outside Brussels' Gare du Midi train station and spoke to travelers.
Why should we be terrorized by these people? We should carry on. That's the only way to defeat them.
I'm shocked, but I'm not scared. I'm not one to let that in. It's, yes, it's difficult, but yes, we cannot let them bring us down.
Can't let them bring us down. Sophia in 't Veld, as somebody who travels to and from Brussels, is it bringing you down? We do not have Brussels. The connection has dropped out. I'll ask you, I'll put the question to you. Claude Moraes, where were you when you heard about the news on Tuesday?
I'm sorry, I've lost your
You've lost the audio.
I lost the audio, but I think I understood what you were trying to say. I mean, obviously this is a very shocking event, but I mean, all of us who work and live in Brussels, who understand what the threats were, know that for many months that something like this could have happened in Brussels, and it eventually did happen. Although the shock and the scale of it, you know, no one can ever really prepare you for. By the way, in London we had the 7/7 bombing, and there were many, many resonances of that. But there are now, after the initial shock, many questions about intelligence, about, you know, why we can't de-radicalize the people who have been doing this, what the external factors are. There are so many questions, but of course it was a deeply shocking event, even though we knew that all the ingredients were there in Brussels for this to happen.
Let me turn to you on this, Guillaume Denoy de Saint-Marc, because if we roll back the clock to last Friday, there's the arrest in Brussels of one of the prime suspects from last November's Paris attacks. And there was this general feeling, for once we have somebody alive who will be able, even if their testimony, no matter, I don't know whether the testimony will be valid or not, but at least they've caught someone alive. It was the sense that it was a good news story.
I was really surprised at the end of the week of the enthusiasm of the media and everybody about the arrest. And at the same time, I think, but the story is not finished. It's not spring yet. You know, many threats are still there, and for the victims and for our association, it was like something that's going on. You know, everybody was very enthusiastic, which it was a good news, but it was
including in your association.
Yeah, it was a good news, but it was not the big news. For the first time, there would be a trial with someone who was really responsible, who would have been caught. So that was opening for a trial in a few years. But that is just a step forward for the victims. And coming from the media, we had the feeling that it was the end of the story, that everything was done, and then we could go on as before. Which is not the feeling of the victims, and of course not the feeling of the associations. I was in prison and I saw radicalized persons the week before, and some of them I know that they are very dangerous. We tried to work with them to bring them in out of radicalization, and some were pretending they were doing it, and we could see at the end that they were just pretending, and they were very, very dangerous. So I'm not optimistic at all about the happening or not of another terrorist attack. I was not surprised. Of course, I didn't know it would happen on Tuesday and in Brussels, but we were aware that something would happen, and this we have to get used to that. Unfortunately, it's not, and I'm really sad to say that, but we have to get used that. Security will never be enough to prevent from a terrorist attack, because we didn't work on another aspect, that was to give intellectual tools for these persons to be hooked and bring into to Daesh or this extremism. We have to work on prevention much more, and we should have done it much before.
All right, prevention should have been done much before, but also, as Claude was saying, the question of what has happened this time. First of all, what was the target? And I'll put it to you first, Etienne Drouard. Was the target Brussels? Was the target Europe's capital? Or was the target the fact that, well, we know that Brussels is a soft target, so just the mere fact that this was an easy place to hit?
Experts say that the target is where it is available, to make a maximum of damages in one place with the light team for that. So that was the target. If we do protect one place, several places, there will be an attack where we are in a weaker situation. So it was Europe, Brussels, France too, international travels, transportation, and the target is where it is available.
For the example, before it was the planes were targeted. Now it's not possible. It's very difficult to get in a plane. So there are other places now. So every time you put more security on a place, the target will change. Right, what is important is a symbol.
Let's go over a little bit what investigators have been saying this Wednesday, explaining that a taxi driver's testimony led them to an apartment in the Schaerbeek neighborhood of Brussels and a garbage can where they found the laptop computer of one of the suicide attackers, Ibrahim El Bakraoui. And in it, there's a statement. He declares, I'm, quote, "In a hurry, I no longer what to do. I'm being searched for everywhere. I'm no longer in security, and if it goes on, I'll end up in a prison cell." Thus, he decides to precipitate what had probably been an attack that had been planned for a while. Again, this is according to federal prosecutors. And now, in the past hours, and I'll put it to you, Sophie Intveld, this statement out of Ankara that Ibrahim Bakraoui, who I've just quoted, had been deported from Turkey, and that Belgian authorities ignored the fact that he was dangerous. Bakraoui, who'd been listed as a criminal target, but not as a jihadist. What's your reaction to that claim out of Ankara?
Well, we'll have to verify if that is true, but I think more generally, we see the pattern that after every attack, it turns out that very valuable information was available to the security services, but it wasn't shared or it wasn't analyzed properly. In any case, it ended up in a drawer or it wasn't used. Every time we find that the perpetrators were known beforehand, and I can see even today, I mean, just hours after the horrible attacks, I mean, the victims haven't even been identified yet. And already we see statements coming from politicians, from the French government, for example, saying we're at war, we need more mass surveillance, we need more this, we need more that. I think we should very carefully look at the instruments that we already have and see how we can use the information that's available. I do not want to find after another attack that information was there, but it hadn't been shared because national services say, oh, well, national sovereignty. I think our security is a lot more important than national sovereignty. And it is high time that national governments in Europe recognize that they should share information on a compulsory basis.
You don't like the wording, we're at war. You think that's the wrong thing to say?
Well, at war with whom exactly? A war, that's between countries, for example, between armies. So you cannot say we're at war. And besides, although the kind of terrorism that we're experiencing right now has a new dimension. Terrorism is not a new phenomenon to Europe, and we've had ETA, we've had IRA, we've had the 17th of November in Greece, we've had the Rota Armée Fraction, we've had the Brigate Rossa. I mean, and every time we've responded with law enforcement means, and this is it has a new dimension in that it's very international, it's cross-border, but all the more reason to fight these terrorists with cross-border means. You cannot fight them on a national basis because they cross borders, they work together, they communicate together across borders. This needs a European but also an international approach.
Claude Maurice, is Europe at war, as it were? Those were the words used, we recall, by the French president on the night of the Paris attacks. We know that Belgium, France, the UK, all taking part in that coalition against ISIS in Syria and Iraq. Is Europe at war?
It's a very unhelpful way to put it, but certainly not the words I would use. There is one subtlety here. I think the issue of ISIL and ISIS, this is a generational problem. ISIL and ISIS and the caliphate and what they are doing is extremely problematic. I think there we have a very major generational challenge, which I think goes beyond just the normal anti-terrorism challenges we've had, with the IRA and BAS and so on. And I think we have to acknowledge that that is going to be very tough and very difficult to deal with. But I wouldn't use those words. And what I would say, and where I agree with Sophie
They
Intervelt,
control actual physical territory.
Exactly, and that's what I'm saying. So I think that's a challenge that goes beyond what I just said. That it goes beyond the normal anti-terrorist struggles. But where I would agree with Sophie Intervelt is that member states, individual countries should realise that there are many tools of anti-terrorism that they are not currently using, and citizens need to, after this latest set of atrocities, after London, after Paris, after Brussels, should realise and understand that they should demand of their countries and intelligence services and police forces the added value. For example, are countries sharing intelligence efficiently enough? I mean, we have this thing, the Prüm Convention, where they should be exchanging certain information. We should look deeply into this and see whether that is actually being done. And before we have all of these phrases being used, the problem is it's very difficult for citizens to find this out because
on that specific point, Claude Maurice, we heard the president of the European Commission today, Jean-Claude Juncker, saying, we've been asking for this for years. Why hasn't it happened? And we could sense there was a tinge of irony. Who is he pointing the finger at specifically?
Look, people who point fingers after a terrorist atrocity should not be doing it. You should take the high road and look for unity. for example, the European Parliament will be voting on passenger name records in March. You know, we want to be unified with everyone that wants to deal with the tools for the job. But while we do that and look at any new tools, we need to ensure that the ones that we already have are working. And we need to ensure that citizens are demanding of current agencies and enforcement agencies that they're doing their job properly, because after every new terrorist activity, we find you know, that there are gaps, and we don't want to see these gaps. We want to support our enforcement services and intelligence services, but we have to work together. So politicians shouldn't be getting in the way of that. They should be enabling that. And that's certainly what I want to do, and I know many of my colleagues want to do that. I mean, this is an emergency. I don't think we're just fighting the normal anti-terrorist challenges. I think with ISIS and ISIL that there are even more challenges that we're fighting at the moment on many, many fronts. And I think although we're focusing on Brussels, we can't be complacent. There are so-called foreign fighters, homegrown terrorists who predated the Syrian conflict, and this radicalisation problem is a problem in more than just Brussels. So let's not be complacent, and let's understand that this may happen in another European Union country soon, and we must have the tools for the job.
All right, I know the panel's divided on some of this. We'll be talking about it when we come back. You're watching the France 24 debate.